major Western countries are recognizing the state of Palestine. Just how did the remnants of a country that has never existed suddenly get recognized by the world's major economies? And more importantly, what is Israel going to do about it? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about this weird one. By the way, hit that subscribe button. Every time I cover one of these controversial issues, I always have a net subscriber loss. So don't let the door hit you on the way out. Now, this is crazy because France is going to join a list of countries recognizing the Palestinian state ahead of the UN General Assembly. Now, this is part of a process to put pressure on Israel as it expands its war in Gaza, as the international community is increasingly outraged at what they believe, and I agree with them, are Israeli war crimes against Gazan civilians. This is Britain, Canada, Australia, and Portugal formally recognized Palestine yesterday. This is an unbelievable turn of events, essentially, because for literally decades, this has been absolutely off the table. And now you have, again, major developed Western countries, close allies of the United States, Britain, Canada, Australia, Portugal. I mean, these countries all host major U.S. bases. And to have them defy the United States really in this way is almost unprecedented. Of course, on the same day, 50 Palestinians were killed in Israeli strikes on Gaza as part of the Israeli campaign to flatten all buildings in Gaza to essentially coerce Hamas to, well, it's not clear what they want, actually, because they also conducted airstrikes against Hamas negotiators. So there's no negotiation venue. But what's fascinating is that Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has his own response. And before we kind of break down his response and his calculus and the calculus of these countries, I want to mention that I also cover these controversial issues. Sponsors, are pretty cagey about me. So I wanted to shout out those of you guys that are members at combatvetnews.com. This is my version of Patreon. You can become a member, get uncensored exclusive videos every Tuesday and Thursday, plus the Q&As, all the membership benefits. But really, it's the best way to support me. This is a self-hosted website. I try to own the whole thing soup to nuts so that I can't get canceled and I can continue to speak truth to power in what feels like an increasingly narrow media environment. Now, here's what I think is interesting, is the actual calculus. So Netanyahu is defiant, saying, we're going to keep doing this. There will never be a Palestinian state, no matter how many of these other countries recognize it. The Netanyahu said Israel will fight at the UN, quote, against the slanderous propaganda aimed at us, which it's not. It's aimed at the Palestinians, but that's fine. And said calls to create a Palestinian state, quote, will endanger our existence and constitute an absurd prize for terrorism. Once again, I don't think at this point there's not really any possibility of the Palestinians eliminating Israel. Like let's just call a spade here. There is no military scenario in which the state of Israel is endangered by the Palestinians. It's not clear that the Palestinians are even capable of. They're not even capable of holding any part, any section, any subsection of Gaza, let alone threaten the state of Israel. But Netanyahu said, quote, the international community will hear from us on this matter in the following days. But what's interesting is it's almost certainly a reference to the fact that he plans on meeting on Sunday with U.S. President Donald Trump. Now, they acknowledge that without Trump's backing, Netanyahu doesn't have that many options for how Israel can respond. But with the backing, which Netanyahu feels he absolutely has, the Israeli leader feels he can do just about anything under a blanket of U.S. diplomatic protection. He said Israel could double Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank, which are considered illegal under international law. And we will continue on this path. Again, this is a model not unlike the Russian Russification of occupied Ukraine, in which Ukrainian children and people are forced out and Russians are brought in. Very common tactic to kind of change the actual, not just occupy a territory, but to change who lives there. Right? But this more reflects a doubling down that instead of saying, hey, Israel needs to walk a fine line between respecting human rights, respecting civilians in this conflict, respecting international norms around occupation and how to treat minorities within your country. Instead, he's like, nah, dude, if you hate us, we're just going to go harder. And the more you say we're bad people, the worse we're going to be, which is kind of, it's one of the takes of all time. Again, and I want to be clear, as I am in every video, a majority, by most polling data, a majority of American Jews are in agreement that Netanyahu has absolutely gone fucking bananas. So again, this is not in any way an indictment of Judaism or the Jewish people, despite the fact that the Israeli government really, really, really wants you to believe that criticism of the state of Israel is the same thing as criticism of the Jewish religion. It's not. The state of Israel is just one of many religious-dominated states in the Middle East, and this one is enacting a terrible, brutal war against people inside of its own borders. Now, Israel accuses Western countries of recognizing Palestinian state only for domestic politics reasons, which that accusation is absolutely true, insisting the symbolic move won't change the reality on the ground. But as they point out, for something that is not going to change the reality on the ground, it sure is making him mad. And it may not be true, right? Now, okay. This is complicated. But ultimately, so yeah, it could have something to do with, so every country has their own set of laws around what they can and can't do with an independent country. But I think it could be more than symbolic if the governments choose to make it that way. And here's what I mean. Like, a country can issue its own passports and travel documents. Right now, Palestinians cannot. They're trapped there, and they can't go anywhere else. But if you could get a passport, then you just have to physically arrive somewhere, and you can actually get access to that place. Do you see what I mean? You can also, for example, another country can do things like issue currency and then make purchases in that currency, right? And exchange that currency. Another country, right, in the UK, can establish a diplomatic mission. They can sign treaties and agreements with the other country. Now, if this could just be a performance. France could say, we're not going to recognize Palestinian currency. We're not going to recognize a Palestinian passport. We're not going to recognize any other Palestinian ambassador. We won't sign any treaties with Palestine. And it could be symbolic. But again, it could not be symbolic. Like, what would happen if there was some kind of asylum agreement with the Palestinians, right? It represents the ability to do a deal directly with Palestine, not going through Israel to do so, which would be huge. Now, as Netanyahu points out, the problem is that there are two Palestinian governments, one of which is pretty moderate, the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, and one of which is dangerously extreme, the Hamas, right? Hamas is literally a terror organization. And so the problem is making deals with a terror organization. But again, a lot of European countries, they make deals with Iran and Saudi Arabia. Iran beheaded like 80,000 people at the end of the revolution. You need to get rid of all those pesky intellectuals, and so they just put them to the sword. So if terrorism was a requisite for not recognizing a country, well, there's a lot of countries in the Middle East that probably shouldn't be recognized. And, maybe they shouldn't. But the problem, I think there's some deeper meta commentary here. And this is about the waning U.S. influence, right? Because remember, Europeans are not happy about the way the United States has taken this America first means America alone kind of thing, right? They've slapped them with tariffs. They've made visas a pain in the ass. In some cases, they've deported their citizens, right? And sometimes in ways that don't feel like they had their legal rights recognized. And these countries are showing their displeasure. Because remember, as they point out, Marco Rubio went to those countries who were going to recognize Palestine to try to convince them that the move was counterproductive. He said in a press conference, quote, "I've expressed that to them on multiple occasions." But the countries said, Rubio, eat shit. And that's what happens when you piss off your friends, so that they don't back you up when you need them, you know? So the like this is actually more of even a I'm going to call it a warning sign that some of the US's closest allies on some of the issues that the US has been most constant and steady on for, again, we're talking about 50, 60, 70 years. We're now seeing them part ways. And again, am I sitting there being like, no, it's good that the Israelis run this like two-tiered state system? Like, not really, you know? But do I think that that what happens when the issue that the West needs to agree on isn't something like Palestinian statehood? What happens when it's how to confront a rising China or how to manage a Chinese invasion of Taiwan? What happens when we really need each other? Are we going to be able to put this aside? Or is this just a reflection of the fact that maybe the concept of the Western Alliance is starting to fade? Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Thanks to Paul Wheeler, Michael Colleen, Jeff Davies, Vance Zacharias, Thomas Anderson, Eugenia Cuesta, and all of our Lieutenant Tier members. Couldn't do it without you guys. Appreciate you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.